Hey everyone, I'm Amari. I'm filling in for our chapter lead, Kaylee, today. Welcome to Creative Mornings, and welcome to the Reach at the Kennedy Center. Whose first time is it here at Creative Mornings? Wow, a good amount. Welcome. If you're new, Creative Mornings is a monthly gathering for the creative community. It started in New York back in 2008, and now there are chapters in cities all over the world. Each month we gather around a shared theme, and this month's theme is NOMAD. It's from our, I'm gonna mess this up, Ulaanbaatar chapter in Mongolia. Yeah. Did I nail it? Yeah, you got it. Great. Before we dive in, I just wanted to thank some of our sponsors. So first up, Adobe. You know them. I don't know if you love them. They're a new global partner for us this year. Beyond their software, they've got resources to help you showcase your work, find opportunities, keep growing your skills through creative apprentice programs. Next, Plants Alive. They're a local plant shop and rental company here in Silver Spring. I work with them, so I'm a little biased that they are the best. This is their second year supporting our chapter. If you're into rare plants, botanical gifts, or just want to scroll some plant content, you can check them out at Plants Alive on Instagram. Charlestown AV, you can see him in the back, is our video sponsor. They're back here capturing today's talk, so you can rewatch it later, or send it to your friends that weren't able to make it today. Our title sponsor, Taste Coffee. If you've been to our past events, you might know Obi, Reggie, or Jason. They've all spoken here at Creative Mornings, and they're the minds and hearts behind the brand. They care about coffee the way some people care about vinyl collections and vintage cameras. It's all about craft, intention, and honoring every step of the process. And yes, it's really good. Next. A huge thank you also goes to the Reach at the Kennedy Center for letting us use this gorgeous space today. We're able to do what we do because of the generosity of spaces like this. So if you know of any others in the DC area, please reach out to us. We'd love to be there. Also, a reminder, Creative Mornings is a fully community and volunteer-run organization. If your workplace supports community initiatives, talk to them about being a sponsor. All our sponsors are small businesses. There's a lot of big companies in DC, and they need to reach out to the creative community. It really makes a difference, and not just, obviously, I'm biased towards Creative Mornings, but towards all grassroots groups around the city. Now, to our volunteer team. These beautiful faces make it all happen today. They do everything from planning, finding the venues, designing graphics, photography, communications, the social media, all the things. They help with setup, making sure the coffee's flowing, staying here until the last chair is stacked. It's a lot of work. All of us do it for free because we love this community and we love showing out for you guys. And if you would like to pitch in on these days as a day of volunteer, you can come find me. So my email is right there, amaridonovan@gmail.com, if you would like to be a volunteer. And also, we have Creative Mornings field trips. They're free virtual sessions hosted by Creative Mornings chapters worldwide. You can find all our talks on there as well. You can join from anywhere, and they're a great way to stay inspired. So if you check out creativemornings.com/field trips or our YouTube channel. We always say we're gonna update this sheet, but we're at 266 chapters. So if you're traveling to a new space and you wanna find out about the creative community, you can just look them up on Creative Mornings, and I'm sure every month they're having a talk. And a great way to plug into the creative community. And remember, bring a friend, make a friend. This thing only works when you guys keep inviting people into our circle. That's how I got involved in Creative Mornings. Obi, who was the chapter lead before, invited me, and I've been here almost every single one since. Coming on 6 years? Yeah. Thanks again. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Nafisa Isa. Nafisa is a mother, educator, and creative based in Northern Virginia. She currently serves as the educational developer at the Center for New Designs and Learning and Scholarship at Georgetown University, where she works at the intersection of liberatory teaching, innovation, and community building. Her work focuses on areas like experimental learning, speculative design, art integration, and praxis, all in support of sustainable and just futures. Before Georgetown, Nafisa worked at the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, where she led the design and planning of the center's programs. In 2019, she received an institutional award for her role in launching the center's groundbreaking Culture Labs. Earlier in her career, she organized community programs at Busboys and Poets and managed leadership and exchange programs for the US Department of State. Nafisa holds a BA from Davidson College, an MA in Learning, Design, and Technology from Georgetown. Outside of work and being a mom, she can be found gardening, building her community, and DJing as one half of Shuno Ray, spinning all vinyl sets and showcasing an archival collection of unheard sounds from South Asia and beyond. So please join me in welcoming Nafisa Isa.
Let's give Amari and the organizers and volunteers and the staff one more round of applause. They've been here since like 7:30 setting up and getting ready. So I appreciate you, and I know everyone else does too. Thank you, Amari, and thank you all for being here. Okay, so 2 things about me. Also, who made this slide? It's horrible. It's horrible. Why do the words go all the way down? I didn't see that. Anyway, so yes, I'm an educator and blah, 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 and I'm like stuff. But right now, I am also goop. Who can relate to that? Is anyone else feeling like goop at the moment? Okay, just a few of us. That's okay. Everyone else is just like perfect and doing great. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. My baby is 11 months old. She's also sick right now. And so bear with me. I like mom brain fog is real. It's a real thing and we don't talk about it. Okay. But today I want to share a little bit about my journey, a few of the ideas that I've been wrestling with recently, and invite you to do some shared reflecting and dreaming with me. And I'll do this in 3 acts within the next half hour or so, right? But before I get started, I just want to check in with everyone again. How are you doing? Good? A little bit louder. Are you feeling good? Yes, okay. Because like we showed up here, right? We came here, it's early in the morning for people like me at least, who tend to be night owls. And it's just, once again, it's a beautiful space to be in together. And just a quick show of hands, because this month's theme is NOMAD, how many of you have lived somewhere other than where you were born? Quick show of hands. Yes, a lot of us, right? How many of you have had to undergo some sort of professional transformation or transition recently? Okay, yeah. Let's see, what else? How many of us have had to explain what we do to other people or our stories, and they're just kind of like, huh? Exactly, right? That I get that kind of like quizzical expression a lot, and hopefully by the end of my little talk up here, we'll all feel a little bit better about it. Having slightly more creative, wandering professional paths. So First of all, I'm going to start by doing a little bit of framing. When we think of nomads, we often imagine rootless wandering, or worse, kind of like individualistic notions of like digital nomads, right? People like living throughout the world, moving from city to city with their laptops. But because I'm a nerd and I think about education a lot and love integrating indigenous ways of knowing into learning, I wanted to correct this misconception for a second and offer a framing that I think is helpful. Indigenous nomadic communities, whether we're talking about Mongolian herders, as Amari mentioned, this theme did come from Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, whether we're talking about herders or the Maasai in East Africa or Bedouins, actually show us something completely different. They've never been lost or aimless, right? And they've carried two essential tools: seeds, both literal seeds for planting, and the cultural knowledge, stories, and practices they preserved and shared wherever they traveled. A compass, not the kind with magnets, but a deep knowledge of seasons, landscapes, and rhythms that told them exactly when and where to be. So true nomadism isn't about having no home, it's about carrying home with you and knowing how to create it wherever you go. Today, as creatives in an uncertain world, we're nomads too, moving between projects, communities, identities, and ways of being. And like our nomadic ancestors and contemporaries, we need those same two tools: the seeds of our stories, practices, and dreams, and the compass of our values to guide us toward where we're meant to be and where we're meant to plant them. The other thing, I'm a gardener. I love planting and gardening metaphors. Bear with me. I will continue using them. You're going to get sick of it. So Act 1, the art of resilience. I recently learned an important story about the matriarchs in my family that helped me make some sense of myself. And I wanted to share it publicly for the first time this morning. My great-grandmother was known as great-great-grandmother was known as the Kaliwala. Kali meaning ink in Bengali, wala meaning purveyor. After her husband's untimely death, she actually began making ink by hand, using what she had on hand, rice, in her home along the Buriganga River in Dhaka. It was an arduous process. It involves roasting, burning, and scraping under the hot sun, and she became actually a well-known entrepreneur because of the quality of her ink, and was able to raise her children on her own despite not having a support system. Since ink was a key component of reading and writing back then, I'd like to think that her handmade ink supported literacy in Bengal as it traveled from Dhaka to Kolkata along the Bay of Bengal. Years later, one of her daughters, my great-grandmother, left a difficult marriage, returned home to Kaliwalar Ghat, the river embankment, and became a practitioner of Unani medicine, a holistic healing practice that exists across South Asia. Practitioners of this medicine are frontline healers. They are trusted community members and health advocates who serve anyone and everyone, but are especially popular among poorer people because of the lack of access to doctors, right, and people practicing Western medicine. Her remedies were passed down through the generations to my grandmother and my mother across continents and oceans, so that now even my siblings and I know a little bit about seeds, herbs, and roots that can help soothe the gut or ease stress. And also, let me be clear, this was way before America became really obsessed with essential oils and turmeric tea and that nonsense, okay? I love essential oils, but really? And I was also happy to learn this story because I can say that there were witches in my family. I'm obsessed with witches as feminist icons and healers, and now I can be like, yes, there were witches who were making ink and healing people. They weren't queens or nobles. A lot of South Asians like to be like, oh, yes, I had a Nawab or an emperor in my family. I'm like, how do you know that, really? But, I'm really proud of these strong women who were mothers, entrepreneurs, healers, who built lives worth living despite disruption and hardship. They planted seeds of creativity, independence, and care, and they were guided by a compass that said, build alongside your responsibilities and create what you and your community need to thrive. So then my parents were born in East Pakistan and lived through a brutal liberation war that led to the creation of Bangladesh. It was a genocide that left deep multi-generational scars. When they talk about their youth, there's often an amnesia, a gap in time and space where words fail them. They don't know how to recollect that era of their lives. This silence isn't just personal trauma, it's also political erasure because Western media largely ignored the brutality as it unfolded. And at that time, the American government did take the wrong side, supporting Pakistan despite mounting evidence of systematic mass murder. Imagine the impact on a people, on a society where millions of people are murdered, including the greatest artists, scholars, poets, and activists of a generation. And then imagine that suffering being rendered invisible. What do you do to heal from that? And I ask that question not because I have an answer, but because I have to ask that question in my work. My parents and I immigrated to the US in 1990, and we arrived on a snowy evening at Dulles Airport. We lived in a bunch of places before settling in Columbia, South Carolina, specifically Irmo, home to the world's largest vegetable-related festival, the Okra Strut. Is anyone else from the South here? Did anyone else? Oh, are you from South Carolina? Are you my cousins? Oh my gosh, that was a slight Beyonce reference. I don't know if anyone got that. I can't be like, are you my husband? But yeah, woo, South Carolina. Okay, so maybe you know about the Okra Strut. So my parents ran a Tex-Mex restaurant in South Carolina because that's what Bangladeshi immigrants do, right? We run Tex-Mex restaurants. I grew up in that restaurant. I made castles out of soda cup boxes. I ate tacos daily, and I'm still not sick of tacos. And later, I did homework and daydreamed in between making orders. My mom used to organize Bengali cultural programs and threw the most fabulous Eid parties. And I never knew that being a Muslim in South Carolina in the 90s could be lonely. It was just always a party, and that's because of my mom, right? My dad used to turn slow afternoons at the restaurant into lessons on Victorian poetry and global politics for his regular customers, and also made friends with everyone from the Ghanaian uncles at our local mosque to military vets who used to come into the restaurant. Imagine being, a construction worker, which is a lot of our customers were, from all walks of life. But imagine being a construction worker in Columbia, South Carolina, and you're coming in from a taco, and here's this man who's like, I'm going to share some Robert Frost poetry with you. And for anyone who's met my dad, they know this is very real. He will quote Steinbeck and Victorian poetry. My parents carried seeds of resilience and community, a compass that said, home is how faithfully you live your values and how you serve your community, not simply where you plant your feet. So take a moment to reflect with me. What values have been your compass, even as everything else changed? And what parts of your own origin story might still sustain you or motivate you today? Yeah, think about that. And we can talk about this more in a second. I actually want to hear what you're reflecting on in a little bit. So Act 2, the work Forging Brave Space. Fast forward 15 years, and here I am reflecting on what led me to become an organizer from way back in the day, starting in high school, and almost always an educator and creative. And why right now I feel like goop, a little messy, a little all over the place, and sometimes heartbroken in this moment of crisis in our nation and the world. I believe our work, professional, personal, creative, spiritual, doesn't happen in vain or in a vacuum. The through line of mine has always been liberatory learning and brave spaces for dialogue. As Amari mentioned, I met people from all over the world while I was working on State Department programs. I ran one of the longest running racial justice dialogues at Busboys and Poets, which for those of you new to DC is a restaurant and bookstore chain. I organized Subcontinental Drift, an open mic series and cultural showcase that was an inclusive space for aspiring artists and people just wanting to make a few friends. There were people who would come in, who were new to DC, and they were like looking for things to do, and they would just show up on Monday nights and seeking community and friendship. And I had the honor of hosting that space for many years. And after that, I spent nearly a decade at the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, curating programs and pop-up exhibitions at a center that had no physical museum space. By leveraging the constraint of not having a physical museum, my colleagues and I co-developed the Culture Lab model, participatory, socially responsible spaces where people could show up as their true selves. I'm finally going to change. I forgot I had slides for a minute. I used to pull up my pants so high, like, I don't know if anyone ever had parents who were like, pull your pants down, My mom was like, pull your pants down. Anyway. Okay, so here's the Culture Lab. Culture Labs were meant to be hands-on, colorful, musical, emotional, and highly interactive. They were big or small and could take many forms as long as the space was centered on building and empowering its community through art, history, science, and stories. We even wrote a Culture Lab manifesto that was a guiding document of our values, in which we explicitly wrote about forging brave space, creating cultures of sustainability and community, and enriching collective memory by exploring our histories and uncovering hidden narratives. This model birthed the Asian American Literature Festival and the Center for Refugee Poetics, which was co-created with poet and author and MacArthur Genius Fellow Ocean Vuong, who's amazing. We had poetry readings, K through 12 educational workshops, a storytelling booth with the South Asian American Digital Archives, and an immersive garden of refuge that I helped build over the course of one day. I thought of the Center for Refugee Poetics when I learned of this particular theme. It was NOMAD, because I was reminded that creatives can learn a good bit from refugees, or the refugee condition, as it were. How to navigate dispossession while, as philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote in 1943, mastering an uncertain future. Today we live in what some call a polycrisis. Genocide in real time, crackdowns on student protesters, the kidnapping of immigrants, and a worsening climate crisis, all while policies seem to be serving corporate ends rather than people and our planet. How do we live and create in this? We must learn from nomads, refugees, indigenous peoples, and others who have endured marginalization and displacement throughout history. So I want you to reflect with me again. What seeds have you planted, and when have you planted them in uncertain soil? So Act 3, generative uncertainty, or what to do when the world is absolutely insane. Oh my gosh, what do you do? So as you may have guessed by now, I'm less interested in how to become a digital nomad and more interested in how we become sanctuaries for each other. Black communities have done this since before the founding of this country. Immigrants and refugees do this to survive new realities and systems. Our nomadic ancestors did this before community somehow became a corporate buzzword. And I have 4 suggestions for us on how to function in this time of uncertainty. 1, trust your expertise and trust your instinct. Imagination is a field of struggle, not an ephemeral afterthought that we have the luxury to dismiss or romanticize. I love this quote from scholar Ruha Benjamin from her book, The Imagination, A Manifesto, which I've been reading recently. There's a concept called resource-induced coping heuristics, or RICH, from psychology, which reminds us that our problem solving is shaped by the tools that we already carry. Marginalized people, nomads, refugee communities innovate from constraint in ways that constant abundance never forces us to imagine. And part of the reason why is that we learn and we create better when we are challenged. I pressed the wrong thing on this remote, sorry. And throughout my work, I've had opportunities to do that through the culture labs. One of the things that we used to do is ask people to engage organically with artists. So when you're walking into a culture lab or one of our spaces, or one of the spaces that I've curated, unlike a traditional museum experience where you may walk in and look at art on a wall or object in a box, we actually ask folks to engage with artists and create artwork together or have a dialogue. And in doing so, hopefully challenge themselves in a certain way. And frequently, a part of this process also meant that we were, for better or for worse, curating and providing some provocative images for folks to respond to, whether it was about the history of our country or systems of socioeconomic oppression or privilege. So part of the reason why we learn and we create better when we are challenged is because of this particular understanding that is actually has a lot of research that backs it. It's the learning zone model. And it shows that the learning zone is in between this feeling of being comfortable and safe and being in a mode of panic. And what do we need to be in the learning zone or a zone of growth? We need challenges. And for a lot of that, you can just look around you. A lot of us have challenges that we're dealing with every day, and there are also so many things going on in the world. And other times you can challenge yourself to be brave. So think of a person in your life who has gone out of their way to grow, to be challenged, to learn something new, and it was just not easy. Whatever they did, was something that maybe you yourself wouldn't have chosen. I actually want to give a shout out to my husband, who, when we've talked about this a lot over the years, but he used to live in the Twin Cities and took part in the actions protesting the murder of Philando Castile. And one of the ways that he told me that was really transformative for him is that after one of the actions, he went to jail. He was in jail and he had days to think about his responsibility, his role in this movement. And it wasn't actually the action itself or the protest, but it was kind of dealing with the consequences that was transformative for him. And so I think about that story and am inspired by it constantly, how he really showed up as an ally and did the work and also faced the consequences. So number 2, embrace authenticity. In the age of generative AI, telling real stories and embracing imperfection are radical acts. Technology is increasingly removing the daily friction that makes for good stories and good art. Have awkward conversations and meet cutes with real people. Sit with the stickiness. That's where creative transformation happens. Number 3, take care of each other. We need rest. We also need each other. It's not enough to be a wanderer on your own. It's imperative that we disengage with the rat race. Yes, sorry, I do call it the rat race. It's that stressful sometimes. And think about how we heal. Here I'm going to quote my friend and curator Lawrence Minwee Davis, who says, "How do we heal from the condition that global systems predicated on exploitation and periodic displacement have wrought? Healing begins with rest and the places that home us. Let's become roving sanctuaries, showing up even when it's inconvenient. Nourish yourself and nourish others. Let's show up for each other, support a community action or a community show, cook a meal, tell someone you're thinking of them, or even just send a poem to my friend. My best friend, when she was in med school, used to like send me these little cards with poems inside. And I was like, any person I date is gonna have to like level up to that, you know, in the future. But I still think about that to this day. This was like 15 years ago now, but I still think about opening a card in the mail that had like a piece of romantic poetry in it just for me. Let's create living archives of love in our communities. People will remember this for years to come, and they'll be able to pull from that archive, just like I did with my best friend, when they need to remember something good in a difficult moment. We must remember that creativity and love are political acts that work better together than apart. Number 4, honor fluidity. Our roles are ever evolving. I know why I feel like Goop right now, like a caterpillar in transformation, because I'm in a liminal phase. I'm not sure what's going on a lot of the times because I'm so focused on my baby, but I know something good is unfolding. Oh, yeah, there we go. The social change ecosystem map has been a resource that I go back to again and again whenever I feel imminent shifts coming my way. It shows that we all cycle through roles: weaver, caregiver, experimenter, guide, and that this phase, whichever one we're in now, matters as much as what comes next. And sometimes we assume multiple roles at once. Just like a chrysalis, transition feels messy, but it's purposeful. Your shifting roles, your uncertainty, your self-care, all of it is part of becoming. You are not separate from your ecosystem. You are an evolving node within it. So maybe being a nomad isn't about how far you travel, it's about what you carry. My grandmothers and parents carried a compass that pointed toward care, creativity, and community. And I carry those values forward in my work today. And now you, every person in this room, are carrying seeds of your own. An idea, a way of working, a way of loving and living in this world. You have a compass, your values, your instincts, even if it's been buried under anxiety, noise, and the rush of daily life. I know right now I'm in the season of chrysalis, that messy middle where the caterpillar actually literally does turn to goop. Like, we think of this beautiful transformation, but turn into slime first. Okay, and then you turn into a caterpillar or butterfly. It's not glamorous, it's not clear, but it's part of becoming. And just like we can see in the bigger social change ecosystem, our roles shift. Sometimes we're weavers, caregivers, sometimes we're builders. Each role, each phase matters, even the in-between ones. Journalist Anas El-Sharif recently wrote something that I haven't been able to forget this week. I urge you not to let chains silence you or borders hold you back. This message rings true not just for Palestinians, but for everyone who is living in this moment. Nomads, refugees, all the people who continue to be displaced, they teach us this. Home is not a fixed point. For many, home, like freedom and safety, is a privilege they've never had. And there's a lot that we can learn from their resilience, grit, and creativity. How might our creative work be exactly what this moment needs? So I'll leave you with this. Home is what we create for ourselves and each other again and again in the face of uncertainty. May you be someone who carries seeds worth planting. May your compass always point towards care. And may you, wherever you are, even in your own season of transition, make a home that allows others to bloom. And that's it. Thank you for being here with me today. Any questions? Should I just moderate it myself? Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. Right over here. Feel free to share your name and your question or comment.
I'm Isha. Is it on?
This one's on.
I'm Isha. Thank
Hi,
you for
Isha.
having all of us, but also speaking on being a nomad. Two-part question. Most of us who are creatives are nomads. We are hybrid or remote. So that's one aspect of it in terms of being able to influence your marketplace where you work. The other part is that I have noticed that most people aren't fighting or pushing against the bricks. They're saying, this is what leadership has decided, and we pretty much acquiesce to whatever is going on. So while we work remotely, one, we don't have the influence. Most of us don't have the influence over our environment. And then two, our environment pretty much tells us what we're going to do, and that is acquiesce to leadership. So what do you say regarding that we can be nomads, we can do all these things, but that almost means that I'm separate. I'm not, looking around and tag teaming with people who are creative in order to make a difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's such a good question. I know, right? I don't think I have an answer. I think this is something we need to continue talking about. I mean, in my work life, we've been talking a lot about anticipatory compliance, which is this idea that to me signals a lack of imagination, right? Is that decisions come down, executive orders are made. And even before we think about whether or not we need to comply with them, institutions and people in management are like ready to comply, are ready to, fall in line. And I think people like you and folks like us in this room have to ask the good questions to challenge that, because it's to me, it's just a lack of imagination, and it's a lack of people talking to each other and being comfortable with being vulnerable with each other. And that's why spaces like this exist. And correct me if I'm not answering your question, but I do think that, it's why I care so much about dialogue. I'm teaching a class on dialogue right now at Georgetown, and it's always very surprising to me how much we've all lost that skill set or never learned it. Or haven't ever had the opportunity to be in brave spaces where we can be comfortable with each other. And so work, I know, because we all have to pay our bills, I'm certainly not saying anyone needs to go out there and be really provocative at work, like keep your job, keep your paycheck, but find those places where, you have a brave space with other folks and can be in community and be vulnerable and do some shared dreaming together. And let's stay in conversation about this, because it's a good question. I don't know that there's an answer yet.
You gotta work as a team.
Exactly.
Yeah, because separate we're individuals and it's harder, but together I think we can face the giants.
Yeah, individualistic versus collective mindsets, right? We're all alone if we think we're alone in this, but we're so much more powerful when we're together. Do you want a mic? Or you can also just talk.
She's got it over there,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I looked at the wrong... We'll go to you next.
Okay. Hi. Good morning. Thank you so much for your insights. I'm very curious and recently has been interested in the East versus the West, and it's obviously not binary, but was curious to know more about the insights that you got from the matriarchs in your family and how they viewed creativity, because I know recently there is a lot of books and insights from a Western perspective on creativity, but I'm curious how creativity looked like for them.
Oh my gosh, thank you for asking that question. And I will try not to cry, because whenever I think about women in my family and how women in most families are erased in a lot of narratives, I get really emotional about it. And I only recently learned this story, these stories about my grandmothers. A lot of times as immigrants, we start our bios and our stories with like, this is when we moved to the US. And I love that now I'm able to reflect on past generations, right? What I've learned from them. So, okay, in my field of work, and I ran a workshop on this a couple of years ago, and it was called Grandma's Creativity, right? There is a field of knowledge that is the categories of knowledge. There's formal knowledge, which is knowledge written down on paper or in books and archived. And typically throughout history, that knowledge has been written and framed by men. And then there's tacit knowledge, which is, you know, quote unquote, informal knowledge. It's our practices, it's oral storytelling traditions, it's practices like cooking, art, you know, like that is actually a form of tacit knowledge. And a lot of times, tacit knowledge is the area in which women throughout history have worked. And I think about how there are so many things we have to learn from our grandmothers, our mothers, that are art, that are creative forms of existence, but it's just not seen as art because it's not in a museum and it's not in, you know, it's not legitimized or validated by the academy or institutions or society, right? So I look back at these stories, and I even look back at my mom, how hard she worked to make our lives so vibrant while my siblings and I were growing up. And I think of that as an art form. Like, my mom is so stylish. I wish I had a picture of her here. Oh, I did earlier. Yeah, that was, you know, from a long time ago. But she's so stylish. And I think about how that is the art of adornment. You know, that's the art of adornment that women and that now men too, dads are also passing down from generation to generation. There's the art of resilience, which was the first act. Like, that's something that I've learned about from the matriarchs in my family. The other thing that I would recommend everyone look at too is I'm really inspired by an artist. Her name is Faith Ringgold. Who's heard of her? Yeah. Oh my God. I love Faith Ringgold. But she did something that was revolutionary at the time that she started making art, is that she made art. She was a textile art maker, and she used the art of quilting, which is a traditional form of art in African American communities, but also Quaker communities, among women, period, right? But it wasn't seen as a legitimate like form of high, fine art. But she did just that. She told these beautiful, compelling stories through her quilts that are now in museums all over the world, right? And so look to quilting, look to things in your everyday life that are forms of creativity and art, but just aren't, you know, deemed as so by institutions. That was a long answer. We can talk about this for a long time. Let me see. There's a picture here. So on the bottom right of this slide, this was a installation called Hijabs and Hoodies by artist Tracy Keza. And my mom is actually she actually had her portrait done, and she's in the bottom right corner over there. And it meant so much to me that she herself could like participate in this space that I had co-curated and created. And it was like the first museum space that she had ever felt comfortable in. And so I would urge that, you know, we all go out of our ways to do our work from like this multi-generational perspective and think about what elders and young people, children need in these spaces as well.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Madi. I really needed this talk this morning, so thank you so much, she, her. I'm a professor, and I guess seeing a lot of what's been going on with Donald Trump having to improve what the Smithsonian displays, and a lot of universities getting attacked for like having coursework on DEI. I'm just wondering what your thinking is on the purpose of education, because Yeah, I think we're really confused about that right now. And also what the intersections are between education and social change.
Oh my gosh, you and I should just get coffee and have a conversation over the next year about this. Oh, the purpose of education. Oh my gosh. So I've always just felt that education is about liberation, you know? I'm a student of bell hooks. Yes, and also the pedagogy of the oppressed by Paulo Freire. And I really think that no matter what we learn at the end of the day, the affective experience is important, right? Like what are students walking away with? How do they feel when they leave? The content, of course, is really important, but are they feeling empowered by what we're teaching them? Are they being made to feel more confident? Are they feeling like they can adapt out in the world? Because we both work in higher education, you might also know this, but there's a lot of student anxiety right now, and it's manifesting in disengagement. And so if you look at the research that's been done, there's a State of the Student report. There are a lot of articles in the Chronicle of Higher Education about this, but just like faculty members, educators in K through 12 as well, worried about students just not being engaged in the classroom. And so I think it requires us to think about how they can have agency in the classroom, thinking about students as pedagogical partners, thinking about students as partners in the work that we do. It's not enough to just think about them as, taking in a bunch of information and then hopefully getting a degree so that they can go out into the world and get jobs, which is what they're worried about, frankly, right? They went in the surveys that have been done and the interviews that have been done with students, they're worried about climate change, they're worried about their viability, their professional viability, about just like times of uncertainty in the world and what that's going to mean for them. Every couple of years, things shift. And meanwhile, another whole area of research also shows that the number one indicator of student success is not necessarily success in life is not necessarily their grades or what type of classes they took or even like specific pedagogical teaching and learning practices, but it's about who they had relationships with and whether or not just one person took the time out to get to know them. And so spaces for learning, I think, and me in my work, I try to bridge formal and informal learning because I worked in museums and informal learning spaces for so many years, and now I'm in higher education. I think about, the world as a learning space and how we continue, maintain that fluidity for students too. But yes, let's get coffee. Anyone else? I would love to hear, if there aren't any more questions, I'd love to just sit down here and also hear about what folks are carrying with you today. What stories are inspiring you? What's motivating you?
Good morning, Nafisa. I might have a question, but I wanted to just shout you out. When you did your intro slide, 4 of your bullet points are also my bullet points: Muslim, Bangladeshi American, raised in the South. I was just going is my doppelganger on the stage?
Are we cousins too?
We actually might be cousins. I don't know.
We might be related.
So thank you for sharing your story, and especially about your family. I really appreciated, particularly when you were talking about your creation, the political context of being a nomad, because maybe some people might disagree with this, but like for most of human history, people were nomads. Borders are an imaginary thing. They're arbitrary political red lines that people die over. And so, but it's not, like they're not real, right? Like most people were meant to be nomads and going across places. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So this isn't necessarily a question, but just your thoughts. As you create art spaces for people to express their identity in museums, in dialogues, in places like that, how do you figure out what sort of guidance to give them about the political dimensions that they can bring to those spaces? Because it does carry risk, right? Identifying yourself as a particular type of person or claiming some nationality or identity, risk of persecution, risk of being misunderstood, risk of alienating yourself. And so what sort of advice do you give to the artists, the creatives, when they're putting themselves out there in these spaces? What sort of advice do you give them to be brave and to express themselves? I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that, to me, it always goes back to community and making sure that you have people around you who will show up for you just as you show up for them, and who will look out for you, because this isn't easy work, right? And it's not easy to go out there and be your authentic self and to show up as your full self either. Like, I know for many years, I grew up only saying that I was Bangladeshi because, or, you know, yeah, like even saying that I was like Muslim or Muslim American in a post 9/11 world was really hard. But I knew that at home, I had this incredibly strong foundation of support in my family. Unlike a lot of other immigrant parents, my parents are actually like very outspoken and supportive of me doing like weird things. So I knew that back home, I could come back and like always have a safe space there. Because it's true that when you go out into the world, you never know how people are going to react to you. The other thing is that I do believe that when people are surprised or taken aback by something that is new, that they're hearing that's new or different from what they're expecting, we can also approach them with a level of humility. I have family everywhere from now like Wisconsin to, you know, villages in Bangladesh, and there are going to be a lot of things that maybe like we don't agree on, or we're learning from each other for the first time. But if both of us can have a certain level of like humility in how we engage each other and understand that like our experiences are our own, I think that can go a long way. And also the Brave Space model, is anyone here familiar with the Brave Space framework? Some folks are nodding. Okay, yeah. Like you can actually look this up online too, if you're interested. There's, it's basically a set of guidelines about how you come together in a space for dialogue or learning or what have you. And it's a place where you acknowledge your privileges, where you check your intentions. You also try to understand that what you say has an impact on people, right? And there are a couple more guidelines. I don't call them rules, but like shared agreements more so. And then when I was curating at the Smithsonian, one of the things that I heard from an artist that really moved me is that she said that we had created a space where they could operate or create out of passion instead of paranoia. And that really stuck with me. And so if you have any amount of power or privilege to be able to shape a space, ask people, like listen to them, be in conversation and ask what do they need? How are they doing and what do they need to be able to do exactly that? Create out of passion rather than paranoia. Paranoia is when you're in a space and you feel like you're boxed in and you have to create based on what others are telling you. And that's the reality sometimes, but also where are the spaces where you can be truly free?
I have for one more question.
Okay, cool. Is that it? Okay, sorry.
Thanks so much. I've really also needed this talk. I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts on this. A lot of the time in like this whole like self-help, self-preservation, there's this notion that I have to take care of myself first and I have to set these boundaries, which are important, but I think inherently community is not convenient. Your friend might need you at a time when you're also going through something, or your community might need you when you're also going through something. And I'm kind of wondering like how you sort of manage to balance that, like in the age of, instead of asking your neighbor for an egg, you can just like order it on Uber Eats and get it delivered instead of having that weird conversation when you need like one egg. Or instead of asking like your friend to pick you up at the airport, oh, I'll just get an Uber. Or like all these things of community that have been sort of lost. I've been thinking a lot about that. And like just in my own experience, like my neighbors, we have like a large group chat that's like 34 of us. And it's like, hey, like I have this, or like I made a rum cake, like does someone want a slice of it? And I'm just curious like how you balance and how anyone maybe balances this sort of like self-preservation while also recognizing that community and friendship are inherently inconvenient. Like they're not going to be convenient for you at your timeline. And I think a lot of like communities that we can learn from have probably also grappled with that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that question and for saying that community is not convenient. Like snaps for real. If I wasn't as sweaty and hot as I am right now, I would actually be able to snap. Oh, that's so good. And I think you answered your own question. No, that's great. I mean, something that okay. So a couple of things. Does anyone work in tech? Okay, I'm sorry. No, for real. I mean, okay. So there are a couple of ways to look at it, and so one, because I'm an educator and I think about this stuff a lot. If you look at technology and like capitalism and how things are being designed right now, like social media was meant, it takes advantage of the attention economy, right? They make money off of the fact that you are giving them all your attention and your time and your views, and they use psychology. They like wield that to make money. AI now is, to me, I see it as a form of colonization too. So they were like colonizing, land has been colonized, your attention has been colonized, and now it's the cognitive domain that's being colonized, right? When you put all your ideas into being generated through AI, and there's like research on this, the cognitive domain is being atrophied when you do that. And so to me, exactly what you're saying about the convenience of these technologies is what's leading to further rupturing of community and society. Yeah, like you said, we like DoorDash instead of like asking somebody to make us a meal or having somebody bring a meal over. Even Uber, instead of like having family members drive us to the airport or pick us up. I think, I'll just share a little bit about my story is that I was living in DC for many years, like in the district. And then there came a time when I had to move back home because of financial challenges at home, and I had to take over for my entire family. And, I work in the creative field and I don't work in tech. Sorry. I don't make that much money. Let's be real. Okay. But I had to take over finances for my entire family. Family is not convenient, but you show up for them, right? And so I always think about family, and I apply that too to my chosen family as well, which is like my community. When people are having their art shows, or, you know, my friends who are doctors, like, are on their feet all day doing all this emotional labor and you know, supporting their patients, like, what do they need at the end of the day to recover from that? And like, I want to check in with them and see how they're doing, even if it's, and you know, I do weird things like send people like disco balls and disco lights. But I'm like, what do you need to have a little bit of joy in your life? So I think it's exactly what you're saying, is that we just continue showing up for people, and the first part of resisting the tendency to continue becoming like fragmented as a society and becoming these individual islands is awareness of that these technologies are made to colonize us and make us be more and more individualized and lonely. I mean, there's a real loneliness epidemic happening, right? So yeah, go out there, garden, stick your fingers in the dirt, go join a community garden or your local Buy Nothing group. I joined for the first time ever, like, a mom's group on Facebook. You know, shout out to Facebook. Like, I wish I was off of social media, but here I am making friends with moms in my suburban neighborhood. Yeah, you answered your question. That was like great. Thank you. That's it. Yay, thank you. Yeah, and
All right, thank you very much. When you said cultivating living archives of love, I loved that. That's amazing. As we wrap today, I just want to take a moment to be still. We typically do this at the end of every Creative Mornings. There's a lot going on out there. A lot of it unjust. It's uncomfortable. But we have each other, and we can have this moment. So feel free to close your eyes. It'll be about a minute or so. All right, you guys are free. You're dismissed.